What is the absolute limit of human endurance? How much can a single person take, physically, mentally, and spiritually, before they finally, inevitably break? The story of Louis Zamperini is like a scientific experiment designed by a cruel god to find that exact limit. A rebellious child turned Olympic runner, then a World War II airman. His life was already remarkable. But what happened to him in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is the subject of Laura Hillenbrand's masterpiece Unbroken. This is not just a war story, it is one of the most incredible true stories of survival, resilience, and redemption you will ever hear. Today on Geeky Philosopher, we are not just recounting a historical event, we are embarking on a journey into the heart of human endurance, to uncover the timeless philosophical lessons of a man who faced impossible odds and simply refused to be broken. To understand the man who survived, you first have to understand the boy he was. Young Louis Zamperini was not a hero. He was a delinquent, a troublemaker, a thief. He was a bundle of defiant, rebellious energy. But his older brother Pete saw something in that energy. He saw a fighter, and he convinced Louis to channel that defiance into running. It worked. Louis discovered he was a phenomenal long-distance runner. He poured all of his grit and determination into training. And in 1936, at the age of 19, he became the youngest American qualifier for the 5,000-meter race at the Berlin Olympics. Though he didn't win, he finished with a final lap so astonishingly fast that it caught the attention of Adolf Hitler himself. Louis Zamperini was on a path to greatness. But then, the world went to war. Louis enlisted in the Army Air Corps and became a bombardier on a B-24. In May of 1943, during a search and rescue mission over the Pacific, his faulty plane went down. Of the 11 men on board, only 3 survived the crash: Louis the pilot, Russell Allen Phil Phillips, and the tail gunner Mac. They were floating in a tiny inflatable life raft, in the middle of the largest ocean on Earth, with nothing but a few chocolate bars and small tins of water. What followed was an ordeal that, honestly, just defies belief. For 47 days they drifted, exposed to the blistering sun, enduring starvation, and tormented by a maddening thirst. Sharks circled them, sometimes bumping against their raft, sometimes leaping right into the air. They survived a storm with waves, well, the size of mountains. And if that wasn't enough, they were even strafed by a Japanese bomber, which riddled their raft with bullet holes. They had to frantically patch those holes while fighting off the sharks that were drawn by all the commotion. Through it all, Louis' rebellious, unbreakable spirit, it kept them going. He caught fish with his bare hands and even grabbed birds that landed on the raft. He led the others in mental exercises just to keep their minds sharp. He really was a leader. And after 47 days and 2,000 miles, they finally spotted land. They had survived the impossible. But they were not saved. The land they had found was actually a Japanese-controlled island. Their ordeal wasn't over. A new and, honestly, far more terrible one was just beginning. Louis was taken as a prisoner of war and eventually sent to a series of brutal POW camps in Japan. Here, the enemy was no longer the impersonal ocean, but the very personal cruelty of his captors. The prisoners were starved, beaten, and worked nearly to death. It was in these camps that Louis met his personal nemesis, a sadistic psychopathic camp sergeant named Mutsuhiro Watanabe, whom the prisoners nicknamed the Bird. The Bird was obsessed with breaking the spirit of the famous Olympian. He singled Louis out for special, relentless, and sadistic torture, both physical and psychological. The book details these tortures in harrowing detail. The Bird's goal was not just to harm Louis, but to strip him of his dignity, to erase his humanity, to make him feel completely and utterly broken. This is the philosophical core of the book. The story shifts from one of physical survival to one of psychological survival. How do you maintain your sense of self when the entire world is designed to destroy it? This battle of wills culminates in the book's most iconic scene. The Bird, furious that Louis is still defiant, orders him to lift a massive, heavy wooden beam over his head. He tells the other guards that if Louis drops it, they are to shoot him. Louis was sick, starved, and emaciated. It was an impossible task, but he summoned a strength he did not know he had. He lifted the beam. Minutes ticked by. His arms screamed, his body trembled. The bird watched, waiting for him to collapse. But Louis did not collapse. He locked eyes with his tormentor and held that beam over his head for 37 minutes. In that moment, he was not just holding a piece of wood, he was holding onto his own dignity. It was an act of pure, unbreakable defiance. The bird was so enraged by Louis's refusal to be broken that he charged at him and knocked him unconscious. But it was too late. Louis had already won. He had proven that while his captors could control his body, they could never ever break his spirit. In 1945, the war ended and Louis and the other prisoners were liberated. He returned to America a hero. But the war was not over for him. He was haunted by the ghosts of his past. He suffered from severe PTSD. He had terrifying nightmares of the bird. He tried to numb the pain with alcohol and descended into alcoholism, his life spiraling out of control. He was consumed by a burning, obsessive desire for revenge. His new mission in life was to return to Japan, to find the bird, and to kill him. He was a hero who had survived the impossible, but he was losing the war inside his own mind. The hatred that had kept him alive in the camp was now destroying him in freedom. His true final victory came from an unexpected place. At the urging of his wife, he attended a sermon by a young preacher named Billy Graham, and in that moment, he had a profound spiritual awakening. He realized that the only way to escape his past was not through revenge, but through forgiveness. He let go of his hatred. He returned to Japan not to kill his former captors, but to meet with them and offer them his forgiveness. The bird refused to meet him, but it didn't matter. Louis had already freed himself. Conclusion: the triumph of the human spirit. Unbroken is, on the surface, a story of failure. Louis Zamperini failed to cross Antarctica. Wait, that's Shackleton. Let me correct. Unbroken is a story that begins with a young man's dream of Olympic glory. He never achieved that ultimate goal. But in the wreckage of that dream, he achieved something far greater. He achieved a triumph of the human spirit that is almost without equal. His story is a timeless and powerful lesson in resilience. It is a testament to the incredible, almost unbelievable reserves of strength that lie within each of us. But its most profound lesson is about the nature of true victory. Louis's final triumph was not in surviving the raft, or enduring the camps, or even in outlasting his tormentor. His final triumph was an act of the soul. It was the moment he chose to forgive, and in doing so, he finally, truly, came home and became unbroken. We will all face our own trials, our own moments when our ship goes down and we feel lost at sea. Louis Zamperini's story is a powerful reminder that the human spirit is more resilient than we can possibly imagine. It is a testament to the idea that we are not defined by what is done to us, but by how we choose to respond. If you are someone who believes in the profound, unbreakable power of the human spirit, then you are a student of this story. Consider subscribing to Geeky Philosopher, where we explore the timeless tales that teach us how to live. Thank you for being here.